welcome back to our channel. I'm Michelle.
And for those of you that are new here, welcome to our channel. My name is Jessie, and we are Moms on Crime. In this channel, we talk about true crime and everything paranormal. So today, Michelle has a true crime story for us. So who are we talking about today, Mama?
Today we're coming back to an Arizona story. We're going to talk about the zombie hunter, Brian Patrick Miller. And I want to thank my friend Dominic and my friend Ryan. They suggested this story to me. I remember when the murders happened. I was way younger, it's in the early 90s. And I vaguely remember when Brian Patrick Miller was arrested. And I was looking at the year because I was kind of thinking, like, why did I not know more about this? And I saw it was 2015, and I had a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, so I'm pretty sure that's why I kind of glossed over it.
You were so busy being mommy.
And Paw Patrol was like the biggest thing on our TV back then to keep the kids busy, like when I was at work. So I'm guessing that's why I didn't really remember this story more, but I started to read into it, so I knew I had to talk about this one. To start off, I'll start with the victims because they're more important. They should get the biggest part of the story, and then we'll get to him later. So we're going to go back to 1992, the night of November 8th. Angela Brasso, she moved here from, I believe it was Washington, and everybody in her family and her friends described her as a force and a firecracker, like the kind of person that would walk into a room and just light it up. And she had a lot of goals, and she was a really hard worker. She held a pretty big position in she was the trainer at a company called Syntellect in Arizona. She lived with her boyfriend in an apartment near Metro Center Mall. And everybody's been talking about Metro Center Mall lately because it's closing down. It closed all the way down, but back in 92, it was like the place to be, right?
Yeah, it's like the hangout place.
So on the night of her 22nd birthday, November 8th, 1992, she went out for a bike ride, which she did often, and she would follow a path along the Arizona Canal. And she didn't come home, and her boyfriend notified her family and the police, and they searched for her. And I guess they used that heat-seeking radar from their helicopters, and they found her body, and she had been mutilated. She was disemboweled, and her head was missing. It wasn't at the scene. And also her bicycle was not there. And about 2 weeks later, a homeless man found her head in the canal. And it was a few miles away. The thing I found the craziest about that is police said her head showed signs of being preserved, like possibly frozen. Because if it had been 2 weeks, it should have been, if it had been in the water, it would have been pretty badly decomposed. Yeah. But it wasn't. It showed signs of possibly being preserved.
Maybe the killer kept the head so that, the cops or the investigators wouldn't find out or wouldn't identify the victim right away.
I was kind of thinking maybe as a trophy. I think he wanted to keep it.
What a
and
sicko.
Maybe he kind of realized he couldn't,
Oh, so, what a sicko.
Yeah. And then about 10 weeks later, 10 months later, there was another victim. September 21st, 1993, 17-year-old Melanie Bernard. She was a junior at Arcadia High School in Phoenix. She had taken her bike out also for a ride along the canal near her home, and she also didn't come back. And the next day, she was also found. She was stabbed and mutilated, and her body was found actually almost exactly where Angela Brasso's head was found. And nearby, there was like a turquoise like bodysuit, but it wasn't hers. They're not sure whose it was. So there was women's clothing nearby, but not her clothing. And after that, police knew then that they probably had a serial killer on their hands because it matched. Finding the women in the canal, and they had both been out on a bike ride. Both of their bikes were missing. So police were fearing they had a serial killer.
The second victim's head is it's not decapitated, right?
Her head. She wasn't decapitated, but she was stabbed pretty violently, like mutilated, but not to the extent of Angela Brasso. So police were fearing there was a serial killer. However, it got quiet. There was no more crimes. So police just figured he's either in jail for something else, or he moved, or, you know, maybe he died, because that happens when serial killers stop. You know, it's any one of those things. Later on in 2014, Phoenix police, their cold case unit, took another look at this case. And have you ever heard of familial DNA? Do you know what that is? I think so. So police are now able to access a database. They won't release a lot of information on it, and you know, it's understandable, but they're able to access databases that are kind of linked with like Ancestry.com and like 23andMe, like those ones. And they can run DNA from cold cases, from suspects, and they can get a familial DNA hit, and then they do more investigating, and they're able to catch their suspect that way. It happened with the Golden State Killer, and I think another one. So
that's
police
smart.
ran DNA. Yeah. So police ran this DNA from both crime scenes, because they had DNA from both, and they got a hit on the name Miller. And they realized they had actually talked to an individual named Brian Patrick Miller back in 1993 in connection with these women, because he lived very close to the crime scene, and he also had a criminal record. But they cleared him back then. But now they had a DNA hit, so they started to kind of trail him, and they got a DNA sample. They won't say how they got a DNA sample, but it's speculated that he probably had like a drink from somewhere and he threw it in the trash. And once you throw it in the trash, or a cigarette butt, the police can collect it to get a DNA sample off of it, and it's totally legal to do. So once they did that,
just technically you threw it away.
Yeah, you threw it away. So once they did that, they got an exact DNA match linking Brian Patrick Miller to the crime scenes for Angela Brasso and Melanie Bernard. So they arrested him actually at his work. He was arrested when he worked at like an Amazon warehouse, and they went there and they arrested him. And this was in January of 2015 that they were able to get enough evidence and go ahead and arrest him. And simultaneously, they served a search warrant on his apartment, where his teenage daughter actually lived with him. So it turns out he's divorced, and he has a teenage daughter, and he has full custody of her. So police won't say, they haven't released what they found in his apartment or any kind of evidence, but there's news footage of them carrying out bicycles that look like really rusted and old. So it's kind of been speculated that maybe it's Angela Brasso and Melanie Bernard's bicycles. Maybe he kept it as like a trophy. So they started to like dig more into Brian Patrick Miller's past, and it turns out as a teenager, when he was 16, he stabbed an 18-year-old woman in the back as she walked to her work at Paradise Valley Mall, because he just wanted to know what it felt like, and he said the woman kind of reminded him of his mother. So he stabbed her, and he was actually charged with aggravated assault, and they wanted to try him as an adult, which they had to abandon later on, and he ended up pleading guilty to attempted second-degree murder, and he served time as a juvenile but was released. And, they looked more into him, and he just kind of like, this is why they call him the zombie hunter. Brian Patrick Miller had an old police car that he had modified, and he put like green lights on it, and he has fake blood all over it, and like handprints, and it has like stickers on it that say zombie hunter, and he has a mannequin of a zombie in the back seat. So he was really into cosplay and into like steampunk, and he would go around to different events in Phoenix, like Comic-Con, and he would go to the zombie walk, which I always wanted to go to, but I never got the chance to. So he would kind of go around to different events, and yeah, it sounds like fun. It always happens at Halloween in downtown. So he actually has like a really big social media presence, and when it's still open, his social media is still active, like Facebook, and Instagram and stuff. Yeah.
What are people
and there's
saying?
Like really, I don't know. I didn't go that far into it, but I really want to. And he has a YouTube channel too, where like he was all dressed up and with his zombie hunter car, but there's like some really like grotesque photos of him like holding fake body parts and like fake organs and stuff. So when you kind of think about those pictures and what happened to the women that he murdered, it's kind of like art kind of emulating real life. Like he was playing out his fantasies, you know what I mean?
So if he's like obsessed with like being the zombie killer, so do you think like maybe in his head like these women, like his victims, were like zombies, or he's like doing like a play in his head or something?
I don't know, or if it's like, I don't know if he's so obsessed with it that he wanted to see what it actually felt like to do it, and so that's what kind of got him started.
That's weird. Like, were the women raped?
I know. I'm not sure. There's not a lot of information on that. But they got DNA. I don't know what kind of DNA evidence they got, but they got DNA from both scenes. And then there was a period of time too after the 92 murders into early 2000s that he moved to Washington, and he actually got charged with another stabbing of a woman there, but he said it was self-defense and he didn't get charged with it. So I'm not sure. I don't know the details of that one that made the police believe that it was self-defense, and I don't know why they didn't take his juvenile record into account. So he never got charged with anything in relation to that. And from what I was reading, they believe that he's possibly linked to 2 other murders and a disappearance, but there's no evidence to definitively link him to it. So I think that's why he's only charged with the murders from the 90s from Melissa Bernard and Angela Brasso. But I started to read, and there's a woman named Victoria Nicholson. She was attacked in 2000 when she was 14 in Washington State, and Miller lived there at the time. She was walking on a jogging path, and he came out of like a wooded area and attacked her and stabbed her 17 times and started to strangle her when another jogger came up on the scene and the attacker ran away. Since then, she has positively identified Brian Patrick Miller as her attacker. However, Washington police won't pursue charges because they said too much time has passed to reopen the case. So I guess the statute of limitations, I would think it would be attempted murder, and I don't know what the statute of limitations is on that. But they won't pursue.
And thank God she survived after what, 17? She got stabbed like 17 times?
Yeah, and he was trying to strangle her. And if that jogger hadn't have run up on the scene, she would have died. I mean, probably. And then there was some other interviews I saw, and there's a missing girl, and this case was really big in Phoenix back in 1992. I remember I was 11 years old, and I remember being scared because I was one of those kids. I was always outside playing in the streets with my friends. This little girl, her name was Brandy Myers. She disappeared. She was 11 or 12 years old, so about the same age as me. She disappeared in 1992. She was doing like a book-a-thon with her sister, so she was going door to door trying to collect money, like trying to get people to sign up for the school's fundraiser. Her sister was with her. Her sister saw her walk down the street and turn a corner, and she was never seen again. Just gone. Never ever heard from again. And
so she's still missing?
She's still missing. She's never been found. And it turns out the street she went down is the street that Brian Patrick Miller lived on. He lived on that street. He lived like 3 blocks away from the girls and like a block away from their elementary school. So she's gone. She was mentally, like a little mentally handicapped, and her mom said she was just really trusting, and she didn't, kind of like maybe a little naive. So if she had knocked on a door and a man said, "Oh yeah, come on in, I've got money in here, but come inside," she would have gone inside and not even second guessed it or seen it as a threat. So she's still missing. But at the time that police were searching for her, they actually found another body. And this body was the body of Shannon Almach. She had been missing for 8 weeks at that point, but she was never reported missing because, this is sad, she was kind of like in and out of foster homes. She stayed at a group home and she would run away often. So when she came up missing, nobody reported her missing. The group home or the foster family she was living with, they didn't report her missing. So her body actually wasn't identified until 2011. And her body was also found in a canal near Brian Patrick Miller's home in the Sunny Slope area. But there's no evidence to definitively link him to this case also, but it's been brought up that it's a very big possibility that he committed this murder. Yeah. And there's another murder that police haven't said that they are looking at Brian Patrick Miller for, but friends of his actually called the police when they heard about this murder on TV. So it is 19-year-old Adriana Salinas. She went missing in 2013. While she was waiting for a cab at a Circle K. Her body was found 2 months later in a wash in the desert after a really big, we get these big monsoon thunderstorms here in the summer, and her body was found in a wash after a big storm had come through. And her autopsy report is kind of odd because it doesn't mention her hands or her head. So it's largely speculated that she was also decapitated and her hands were cut off. But her murder, but she is listed as a homicide. But Brian Patrick Miller friends actually called police and said they felt like they should look into him for this murder because he was actually at a party, like a cosplay party, the same night about a mile away. I saw a map and it shows where she was last seen and where he was last seen, and it's like within blocks of each other.
Super close, yeah.
And Brian Patrick Miller's ex-wife has actually come forward and said he admitted to her that he killed Brandy Myers, the little girl that went missing during the bookathon. He admitted to her somewhat that he committed the murder, but then he said it was more like a dream that he did it. So she kind of thought that he was just kidding, and maybe it was like a weird, like he was joking, or maybe like a weird fantasy, like role play or something, because he's like kind of weird, I guess. Everybody described him as being kind of a weird guy. But
he's the zombie hunter.
He hasn't been charged with those three others, the disappearance of Brandy Myers or the murder of Shannon Almach or Adriana Salinas. And I'm not sure if there's just not enough evidence, and police have so much evidence for the earlier murders that they know they can convict him on. So there's really, I mean, it's sad to say, but there's no point in trying to pursue charges on a crime where it's not as strong. And I think maybe it could confuse a jury. So they're just sticking with the charges where he's definitively linked by DNA. True. So he's
for these other
still
victims,
waiting.
Like for the latest victims, they didn't find his DNA or anything like that?
No, I think too much time had gone by for Adriana Salinas. It was in the summer months, and by the time they found her, I think she was pretty badly decomposed. So I don't think they could get any evidence. And Shannon Almach, that one, I'm not sure. They found her in the canal, and she had been missing for 8 weeks at that point. So I don't know how long she was in the water either, and maybe that's why they couldn't maybe get good DNA evidence. The only thing they strongly have linking him is the proximity to where the girls were missing or found. You know what I mean? Like they can say he was close by in all three. And then who knows if there's any unsolved cases in Washington State when he lived there? Who knows?
That's true.
But I think that police only charging him with the first two murders because there's strong DNA evidence to convict him, and it's a death penalty. They're going to charge him with the death penalty but he's actually still awaiting trial. He was supposed to go on trial this year in March in 2020, but because of coronavirus, it's been delayed. So he's actually still awaiting trial. Yeah. So hopefully they convict him, and maybe if he has a heart, he would admit to the other crimes and maybe tell Brandy Myers' family where she is, because they really want her to come home.
Well, yeah.
Some closure for them,
But
but
I don't know though, because, well, I mean, I don't know what goes on in his head. I mean, if he's gonna get the death penalty, it's like might as well just tell the family so they can have closure, you know?
yeah, I
Like,
don't know, but I think like a lot of them don't, you know?
yeah. But has he been tested? Like, you know how they do like a what do you call it? Like a mental test or something to see if you're like
I don't
if you're
know.
insane or
I don't know. It hasn't said that anywhere. I couldn't find that. They
mm,
might be holding that close until trial. Maybe they might try to use that as a defense or something. So I didn't find
yeah,
that
that's
anywhere.
true. But still,
Mhm. Yeah.
that is crazy. So it's
That's the
gonna be
story of the
moved to
Phoenix
like
Canal murders.
so it's gonna be the trial or whatever is gonna be moved till next year, hopefully, when the COVID's over.
Yeah, whenever COVID's over here in Arizona, but it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. So
Mm-mm. Sadly, it's not.
we'll give an update
Yeah.
though whenever he goes on
That,
trial. We can do updates on that.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like that one story that we talked about, Aaron Juan Cesedo.
Yeah.
So I think his trial was set for this year, but because of
Moved
the
also.
COVID, I think, or something, now it's being moved.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That is crazy. I want to know. I want to know what happened. And hopefully, due to like the COVID or whatever, investigators will find more evidence to link him with, the
You
other
know,
murders.
he looks so familiar to me, and I don't know
Really?
why. And yeah, and I started thinking about it because I was reading where he lived, and he lived in the Sunny Slope area. And I worked in pizza for a really long time. I worked at like Domino's and Papa John's. I
Yeah.
used to work at the Domino's up that way, like not
Oh,
far from Sunny
wow.
Slope. And I'm looking at his face, and I'm like, why do I feel like I've seen this guy before? I'm like, I wonder if
What
he
if
was
you
a
have?
driver. What if he was a pizza driver at Papa John's? I don't know. I
Oh
just feel like he looked
my
really
God.
familiar. I'm looking at his face and I'm like, I just feel like I've seen him somewhere before. And
Yeah.
I've lived here for so long. I've lived here since like 1986. So I don't know. He just looks really familiar to me. It's kind of weird.
Oh,
And then I keep
wow.
wondering, like, I
That's
wonder
how
if I ever saw the zombie hunter car driving around because I guess his car was like well known. Lots of people saw it and people would stop and take pictures of it and stop and
yeah.
take pictures with him. So he was like kind of like locally known for
Mm-hmm.
his zombie hunter car. And I
Maybe
keep
you've
trying to
seen
think,
him.
I've had to have seen him before
Maybe a few
living here for
times
so
because,
long.
I mean, if he looks familiar
I
to
don't
you,
know, but then
I'm
that
pretty
makes
sure
it
you've
so
seen
much
him like at
scarier.
least once.
I don't know, and that makes it so much creepier too to like think.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
You know what's weird? I do too. I was looking at pictures he took. Like, there's pictures of him with police officers, like posing at different events that he went to, dressed as the zombie hunter with his zombie hunter cop car. And he took pictures with police officers. And for something, I don't know why I do this. Sometimes when I see pictures of people that have been convicted of murder or they're like like pending trial, but I mean, obviously, right? I look at
Yeah.
their hands and I'm like, that's crazy. Like those hands murdered people. I
Killed.
don't know.
Yep.
Something creepy I do. I was looking at the pictures and I was like,
That's crazy. So he took those pictures like after or before he committed the
I mean,
murders?
after they looked like pictures from like the 2000s. They don't look too
Yeah.
old. He was at
Yeah.
different like the zombie walks and stuff.
Oh
And
my
police
God.
officers would think like, oh, that's so funny because he had like green lights on the old cop car that he'd like, fixed up as the zombie hunter mobile, and cops would pose for pictures with him.
Oh, and little
the
do they
time,
know.
This dude, so scary.
He's the one that they've been looking for.
Yeah. So,
wow, what a sicko.
Creepy. So creepy. But we'll give updates so whenever he goes on trial. For sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I want to know. Like, that is crazy.
That's the story of the zombie hunter, also known as the Phoenix Canal murder.
Mm-hmm. If you guys want to know more updates or something, don't forget to leave the comment down below and let us know, because we'll probably do another video or like an update video or something.
Yeah.
And if you guys like this story or our video, please don't forget to like and subscribe.
And also turn on the notification bell so every time we upload twice a week, you'll get notified and you can be the first one to come hang out with us and listen to our crazy stories that we like to tell. That's all we have for today, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.